Hey Ringside crew, welcome to the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. And now here's your host, Joe Panther III.
Hello there, wrestling fans, and welcome to another episode of the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. I'm Joe Panther III, and we are in the middle of International Wrestling Month. And why would I not forget my favorite people from the down under, Australia, because they are international. Introduce yourself to my internationally known audience.
Sure. I mean, for those of you who are a bit unfamiliar with Australian wrestling, my name's the silly superstar Billy Preston. I am the silly entertainer with unusual behavior. I am one of Australia's well-known sports entertainers, and I am pretty much a bit silly. That's my gimmick. I think.
Awesome.
I think for those of you who know some of our premier promotions like Pro Wrestling Australia or MCW or Slam, those are kind of our big three, promotions over here. But lots of aspirations to kind of go overseas, travel as much as I can. Whether it's Japan's our close one that we often go across to, but US is definitely a big market. We've had a lot of people actually move and go on excursion pretty much for the next couple of years to Canada to try and make a name for themselves. Shout out to people like Ricky South, Kingsley, Jimmy Townsend, who I'm quite close with as well. They've gone over there to try and make their mark as well, so big shout out to them. But yeah, look, happy to be here today, and thanks Joe for inviting me on.
No problem, man. So what was it like to do your first professional wrestling match?
So my first professional wrestling my first pro wrestling match was a bit interesting because it was a bit unexpected. I think for a lot of professional wrestlers, they're kind of thrown into the deep end when plans just fall through. So cards always subject to change. So when I first started, I was in a tag team, and I was quite young as well. I think I was fresh babyface, 18 years old, and my tag partner was 16. We were known as the prefects. We were high school boys, a bit preppy, bit unlikable, but definitely underdogs. And my first match was a handicap match thrown into the ring with our champion at the time, which was a guy named Caveman Ugg, who's recently just gone over and debuted in New Japan. He's a bit of a monster, and it was pretty much 3 minutes of me getting the shit kicked out of me. I think it was. I did not get much offense in. It hurt. I know Jimmy, who was my tag partner, like I mentioned, has gone over to Canada. He still feels pain in his back from that match because when you wrestle for the first time, you think you're prepared, but you get in there and you're very unprepared. And I think there's things that older, wiser Billy Preston would do that now if he was in that situation again. That young Billy Preston probably wouldn't have done. But it did give you that first injection of what it's like to be in front of a live crowd. It definitely was that first hit of adrenaline and definitely hooked me. I think I've had matches since then, but even though it was a brief 3-minute stint, it just wasn't enough. And I think since then, I've had a massive drive and ambition to basically get as much screen time as possible, get in front of the crowd as much as possible, entertain them. Because that's what I love. I love entertaining people. I love getting in front of a live crowd, and I think that was, I guess, the first stepping stone into, I guess it's funny because I don't see him. I've been wrestling now for 7, 8 years, and it's interesting when you reflect and look back of what you've done so far, and you've built a portfolio of matches and career highlights, and that was, I guess, a first checkpoint in that career.
So, when it comes to like gear and stuff you wear, did you always have this vision of what you wear in the ring, or was there like always a thought process?
No, so well, I'm probably one of the people that think a lot about their entrance attire and their gear, and I think that's kind of part of my differentiating point of view to compared to other performers. So my gear's always been, what are people not wearing? And sometimes it's people aren't wearing it for a specific reason. But other times it's just to look as different and eccentric as possible. So I think I sent across a shot of what I'm wearing at the moment, and it's this big, bright jumpsuit, bright blue. It's very Benson Boone inspired, but also there's a bit of Elton John. There's a bit of, I'm a massive Kiss fan as well. So there's a bit of that sort of like inspiration behind it. But my first gear was trunks. So I had a pair of trunks that it's funny how carny things are, but I basically printed a pattern on a website on a flat piece of material, and I ran it to a tailor that was around the corner from my house and said, "Hey, can you make this into 2 pairs of trunks?" And it was back to that schoolboy gimmick that I did. It was a pair of trunks with a tie at the front where the crotch was, and on the back it said prefix. And I remember there was a little academy show that we had that was kind of our debut, and I rocked up on the Saturday morning and said, "Hey, I'm here to pick up the 2 pairs of trunks." And the tailor said, "Oh, I've done one of them. The other one's not ready yet." So I drove out, went to the venue with 1 pair of trunks, and kind of got organized for that show, and then drove back, picked up the pair of trunks for my partner, and then went there and wrestled. So that was my first gear. And the feedback we got after wearing that for a few months was, "You guys are schoolboys. You look a little bit too naked with trunks." And this is back before I knew what a gym was. So it was, very skinny, looking very naked with trunks, kick pads, and knee pads. So I moved over to Butcher's, to singlet, like a Kurt Angle style singlet. That was my aesthetic for a good while, and I think for like 5 years I was wearing singlets, and I thought I really enjoyed wearing a singlet. I thought it gave you that amateur wrestler kind of look, but also you could put your own kind of style onto it. Like, got inspiration from wrestlers like Rob Van Dam, who had the like the tiger print and the airbrush, that sort of style. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do an airbrush. So there was a time where our gear maker was not making any gear. So I kind of had to fend for myself. And funny enough, I got some singlets off Wish, and I busted out some paints and just painted some singlets as best I could. And that did well for a while. And then I found another gear maker who made another singlet for me. And then I kind of went about 2 years ago, or 1.5, 2 years ago, went through a bit of a repackage. I switched gimmicks a little bit, and refined over to the silly superstar persona. And with that, I thought, look, I probably need a fresh look too. So that's where the jumpsuits that I've got now have kind of come from. So you can kind of see, I think character should definitely reflect in the gear and the aesthetic choices that you make for what you're wearing. And there was definitely a big jump. For previously, I was doing more of like an adult version of Blue's Clues, and I wore the rugby jumper and a singlet underneath. And when I moved away from that over to the silly superstar, now it's more, as over the top as I possibly can. And I'm wearing this big flashy jumpsuit. I'm wrestling in that. I've just installed light up shoes, very similar to like Naomi, if you've seen that. I'm
Yeah.
wrestling in that. So I'm just trying to be as loud as possible because I think that's the persona I embody. You know, I'm trying to entertain you. I'm trying to be flash. I'm trying to be as look at me as possible. And that's kind of where the gear and the mindset of what I'm wearing kind of comes from. So
Awesome. Do you have any wrestlers that you've been watching from the Australia wrestling scene that you really want to work with that you haven't had a chance to work with yet?
ooh, so Australia is interesting because wrestling is a big bubble, and I think in Australia the bubble is even smaller. There's people who I've worked with in small capacity, but I'd love to kind of wrestle with them in a larger frame. I think if we look at Perth promotions, so like EPW, I think the big people over there who are big inspirations for me. I mean, Damian Slater and Davis Storm are probably the two biggest names over there that I'd love to have a match with. I mean, Damian Slater's a great person to aspire to kind of wrestle. I think he was in the initial Cruiserweight Classic for representing Australia in WWE, and yeah, he's launched his own kind of online platform to kind of educate wrestlers. I think that's great, and kind of what he's doing there. And then David Storm, he's come over here to Sydney a few times. I've seen him wrestle. He's the godfather of Australian wrestling, and yeah, he'd definitely be someone to want to aspire to wrestle to. I mean, in MCW, I mentioned Caveman Ugg. So Caveman Ugg originally spent a long time here in Sydney, and he was our PWA champion for a long time. Now he's tearing it up in Melbourne. I think back to that story of he was my first proper match. I'd love to have a long competitive match with him to see how much I've actually evolved since then. So he'd be someone in Melbourne I definitely want to look at wrestling. In Brisbane, there's other people like Bobby Bishop, who's up there, and then here in Sydney, I mean, I managed to wrestle Robbie Eagles, I think at the start of this year, and I thought that was a really big stepping stone for my career. I'd love to have another match with him. There's also other people who are kind of coming up as well, like Tuckman, who's tearing the Sydney scene, not just Sydney, but all of Australia up at the moment. I think he's one of the hardest working guys there. Yeah, to be honest, it's funny. Even though you have such a long career, you look back and there's so many people that you're like, oh, we've never actually wrestled. Like I would love the chance to wrestle. Pretty much everyone. I think there's so many people that have yet to properly work, and I'd love to wrestle all of them basically.
Awesome. Before we go, if you have any upcoming shows, where can they find it?
Yeah, so in terms of the shows they've just released, we just had one of our Black Label events come on, I think live on YouTube. I think 1st of August it would have been released. Previously we had our own streaming platform. Since then we moved to Fight TV, so some of our older events should be available on Fight TV. But majority of the newer events, if you want to look at that catalog, best place to look at it is free on YouTube. So I think just Pro Wrestling Australia is the promotion that I probably work the most. That's my kind of home promotion, but get to travel interstate as much as I can. Yeah, you can see the link there. That's the best place to kind of check us out. Other promotions I work locally, Wrestling Goes, another promotion that I'm pretty well affiliated with. Currently, I'm the doubles medalist, so the tag champion, with a wrestler called Cosmo Cooper. We're Positively Silly. That's our moniker. That's our tag team name. So
That's
we're
awesome.
yeah. So I think we have in a couple weeks' time. I think the 15th of August is our where we'll be competing for the tag belts against two, I think Genghis Kong and Joey Ferrugia. So that I'm not too sure when that'll exactly get released because that one's not live on YouTube, but you'll be able to check that match out there. Wrestling Go, that's another promotion to kind of check out if you get the chance to. But yeah, I guess Australian wrestling, as I mentioned before, I think the main places to kind of check out. So the big premier New South Wales promotion is Pro Wrestling Australia. You have Slam, which is down in our capital territory in
I
Canberra.
know about Slam.
You have EP. Yeah, Slam's awesome. I haven't managed to join one of their massive marquee shows, but I've done some of their smaller shows. They're a really great crew of people to work with. Really nice, really good to kind of be a part of that promotion. EPW, Explosive. What is it? Explosive Professional Wrestling in Perth. That's a really interesting one, especially now with WWE coming over a bit more frequently. There's more eyes, so a lot of us have kind of they basically do quarterly camps to invite interstaters across. They've just had their winter camp, I believe, but they're a really great place to check out too. As I mentioned, Davian Slater, Davis Storm, Marcus Pitt as well. They're really great people to kind of look into. I think there's some really great people to check out there. That's where I forget what her new WWE name, but what's her name? Daria, I think.
Oh
Daria.
yeah, the one that was everybody loved in Australia, the real scary one with the cool makeup. Yeah.
Yeah. So
She was like almost like the cyborg of Australia.
Yeah, I mean, I managed to meet her when she came over to Sydney, but also she, like last EPW show I attended, she was there and did an amazing performance. So she's been a part of that. She's also been a part of I think Riot City Wrestling and in Adelaide. So Adelaide's a really cool place to check out. But yeah, it's interesting because like each state here in Australia kind of has their big promotion. So it's just it's kind of interesting to kind of travel interstate and kind of be able and just experience different takes on wrestling. So yeah, I think those are some cool places to check out. But yeah, in terms of the one that you'll probably see the silly superstar the most is Pro Wrestling Australia.
Awesome. I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you for adding your name to my Australian Wall of Fame. It all starts out with Savannah Summers, and it goes with Izzy and much, much more. Thank you so much. I am Joe Panther III.
And I'm the silly superstar, Billy Preston.
And we will catch you in the next one.
See ya.